For Moving Traditions, this is At 13, a podcast exploring what it really means to prepare for and become a bar or bat mitzvah. I'm Sara Ivry.
Flowers, decor, piping and draping, lighting, so that's what event design is.
We're in a hotel ballroom in Midtown Manhattan.
I'm Phyllis Skolnick from Extraordinary Productions. For a very long time, themes went away. Right, so people were doing colors, they were doing logos, they were doing color stories.
She was among the dozens of vendors at a party showcase sponsored by Mitzvah Market magazine.
Oh, we just did a 007 theme. So it was 0013. People are coming to us with the Willy Wonka theme. People are coming to us for the car themes.
We met stationery designers.
Well, we're doing a lot of really cool marbles and a lot of custom writing on acrylic and signage.
Photographers.
More and more families want to include what's called a pre-mitzvah shoot, a more casual shoot that we'll do a couple months before the bar bat mitzvah date. And what a lot of families like to do is use some of the photos from that session as decor at the party.
Dragon popcorn makers.
It's popcorn that has been flashed with liquid nitrogen, which brings it down to 340 degrees below zero. So then when you pop it in your mouth, because of the warmth of your mouth and the combination, smoke comes out of your nose, out of your mouth.
And we met lots of DJs and MCs like this guy.
My name is MC Michael Theodore. I'm with EK Productions. We are a full entertainment and event production team. We actually specialize in bar mitzvahs, and we make dreams come true. I'm your master of ceremonies. I'm your host. Also, I am your party starter.
Michael says his company's packages start at $2,500.
With your MC, your DJ, your dancers, your staging, your lighting, your giveaways, and all kinds of production that we're going to include in that, adding in the TVs and the other games and a whole lot of other elements that might make the contract just a little hefty.
The biggest trend right now is photo booths.
Photo booths and the ability for you to edit your pictures live at the events. They like interactive photo booths where you can have the videos interact with the person that's taking the pictures. You have photo booths where you can send it all over social media.
And this year's must-have songs?
Black Eyed Peas, you believe it or not, is still very relevant. I've actually had a few mitzvahs in the past couple of weeks where parents wanted me to end the horror with that song so that all the family was together. Uptown Funk took over. Anything Pitbull is great for a mitzvah. I swear when he was making music, he said, I want to be played at every single mitzvah around this country.
Of course, party styles, themes, favors, and costs vary widely. We talked to a lot of planners, and all of them had this advice.
I think the most important thing to do is get your budget together and figure out exactly how much you want to spend, because you can go from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye, and it can get totally out of control.
And in a big metropolitan area, planners can be expensive.
I do a flat fee. Depending upon what is included, I'm between $7,000 and $10,000.
That's Nancy Holer of Shimmer Events. She says if your total party budget is $10,000, it's just not worth it to hire a planner. Here's her basic checklist.
First and foremost, you want to find your venue, most important. Then you're going to knock off the big things. Your entertainment company, which encompasses your DJ, your MC, and mostly they do the games also. That's one person. The photographer and the videographer usually go hand in hand. If you decide to use a videographer, not everybody does. Your decor person. And invites. My invite people usually do my logo. And then there's a montage person as well.
So many options and pressures and decisions. Daniel Brenner tries to see parties from the perspective of the preteens.
One of the things that this does for kids is give them a social calendar where they can test themselves out in a social environment where their parents are not on top of them and teachers are not on top of them.
Brenner is a rabbi and chief educator for Moving Traditions. He's also the executive producer of this podcast series.
And I also just feel that the festive nature of the party is a good experience for most tweens. It is good for them to be in a party environment and party atmosphere where, okay, sometimes there's somebody telling you to play a game or sometimes there's a motivational dancer, but for the most part, you're making your own choices about where do I sit and who do I hang out with and do I get up for a drink now or do I go talk to that group? And it is a high-pressured situation for sure, and there are a lot of tweens who just are not ready for that. But for most tweens, it is an incredibly healthy way for them to develop some social skills that they are going to need for the rest of their teen years.
It's a relatively safe space, that is, for figuring out who you are and more.
Judaism has a lot to say about how we treat each other and what does it mean to be a guest and what does it mean to be a host.
Deborah Meyer is Moving Traditions Executive Director.
We're anxious. We don't exactly know how to behave. Who should I invite? Do I have to invite her?
Rabbis and other Jewish educators often avoid talking about bar and bat mitzvah parties because they feel that too much focus has been put on party culture in general. But Meyer says celebrations are a way to show we value each other.
We want to draw from Jewish teachings, which teach that there's a way of being a guest, that we want to walk a guest to the door. We want to accompany them to the door so that what does that mean? That means I want you to feel comfortable, and as you leave, I want you to leave my house feeling accompanied by my friendship. So those kinds of teachings can help guide kids in the sort of awkwardness that's thrust upon them when they are suddenly all the time a guest and all of a sudden a host.
That doesn't mean, though, that there is only one way to have a party. At one extreme, we hear stories about Drake and Nicki Minaj performing at lavish blowouts, but those kind of events, they're outliers.
Let's leave aside the worst reasons that people throw big parties, which is, to impress their work associates or because they feel they have to or because they want to one-up the neighbors. And let's talk about the best reason, the two best reasons.
Mark Oppenheimer is the author of 13 in a Day.
One is that maybe you're marking something really awesome, like people getting married, or like your son or daughter learning to read Torah, or giving a great speech, or overcoming their fear of speaking in public. So something awesome has happened, and Judaism encodes that and says there are times you're supposed to party. And the second thing is, and this has been pointed out to me and was not something I was as sensitive to when I wrote the book and was unmarried and didn't have kids, is that if you have 100 relatives come in from out of town, you kind of got to feed them. Or even if you don't gotta, like some of them might not have so much money and some of them might have spent a lot to come. And so if you can afford to at least cover their meals in some sense while they're here, that's a mitzvah. I definitely saw a lot of families who did that feeding in their own houses.
Oppenheimer's talking about the simchas, that is, the celebrations.
To me, the central question about the party is who are you as a family, right? If you're a family that is always having over-the-top catered events, I suppose you should have one for all of your simchas, for birthdays and weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs. If you're a family that doesn't have over-the-top catered events with light shows and laser shows and rappers performing, then having one for the bar bat mitzvah is a little bit twisted because you're welcoming your child into normal adult Jewish life. So I think, to me, what gets me sad isn't the size of a party per se. It's when I feel like the party doesn't reflect the values of the family or the child.
Sometimes a preteen has a very clear vision about what they want.
I think it's going to be different than a lot of other people are. Everybody in my class that I've been to has had a dance party.
That's Michael Levine. He's having a celebration in the social hall of a Brooklyn synagogue.
We're hiring these people called Game Lab, and it's a camp where you play board games and stuff. So I'm going to have them come. They're going to be like giant board games, like the size of a room, giant chest, and there's going to be like fighting with the foam swords and stuff. It's different than a lot of other people's.
Ruby Leah Silverman took her time figuring out her vision for her party.
The kids in my class have been doing themes for their party, and at first we were going to do a theme of unicorns because I love unicorns, and then that didn't really work out, and Mom and Dad said to me, well, we don't really need a theme. It's not about the theme. It's about me becoming a bat mitzvah. So basically the theme is me and celebrating that I'm a bat mitzvah.
Are there colors or specific motifs in the design or anything?
I love the color pink. So it's going to be pink and gold. And there are going to be balloons on the tables and confetti. And on the confetti, Mom's customizing it so that they have pictures of me on the confetti. And I think it's going to be really cute.
Families can work together to craft a vision of the celebration.
Okay, my name is Elan. I'm 15 years old. I'm a genderqueer, non-binary trans person, and I use they/them pronouns.
Elan loves dancing, but when they were planning a party, they were wary from their experience as a guest at countless bar and bat mitzvah parties.
The whole culture around B'nai Mitzvot was very gendered. I attended a Jewish school, and we had B'nai Mitzvot pretty much every weekend, oftentimes multiple in one weekend. The DJ at the party would do games and snowball dances and things where the guests, the teenagers, would be split up by gender. He would say boys on one side, girls on another. So that made me uncomfortable, and something that we did to amend that was we specifically told the DJ, can you please not split up the kids by gender?
Elon's mother, Amy, says she was frank with potential DJs.
I knew that before agreeing to hire someone, that person needed to be very comfortable with a completely gender-neutral experience. So I said, do not use boys and girls. Do not divide the kids by gender. You know, there's going to be no slow dancing, and there's going to be no games where it's boys on one side, girls on the other, or hey, boys and girls. It's all going to be hey, kids. And he's like, great. And it was completely honored. So that was a tremendous relief that we could have this dance party in a new way.
Before the choices get made, what to wear, the kind of entertainment you're going to have, whether you have flowers on every table or giveaway T-shirts, here's a question you might ask. What kind of party will best reflect my child, and what will be best for this moment to mark the beginning of the teen years?
In areas where there's a large Jewish population, there's a bar mitzvah party industry.
Mark Oppenheimer has a good sense of how geography and class affect how families approach the party.
When you get away from major Jewish centers, they become much more DIY, do-it-yourself affairs. So they tend to be less polished. Sometimes they can be a little haphazard, but they also have a uniqueness where you know that this family had to make a lot of conscious decisions. They couldn't just hire the party planner. They really had to think about what they wanted the day to feel like.
Writer Peggy Orenstein thinks B'nai Mitzvah parties should be dialed back in general, from the extreme spending to the extreme social pressures.
In some ways, what it's become is you've finished your studies, you're done, you get to have this blowout party, and then you never have to walk back into a synagogue again. That's kind of what it has become. And, I mean, that wasn't what I grew up with. It wasn't what my nieces and nephews did, and they grew up in the same community that I did in Minneapolis, a much more traditional community. They had lovely parties, but they either had them at home or they had them at the synagogue. And they weren't so focused on the boy-girl stuff. There wasn't so much pressure around that. There wasn't so much pressure on the clothing and making this moment a moment where you suddenly transform and come out as hot. And it's not supposed to be a debutante ball, It's supposed to be a spiritual moment of taking on responsibility. It's an awesome moment in the old-fashioned sense of that word.
Then there are parents like Jordana Horn who decided to reject the elaborate parties that are so typical in her New Jersey suburb.
200 to 300 people, a country club at night, a DJ, tremendous centerpieces, food, this whole thing. And they're lovely. But to me, it didn't have the weight and the significance that I wanted to give to this occasion.
She opted for a communal meal, a kiddush, and a special trip.
We had a kiddush after the service, the entire congregation as well as our guests. And then that evening, we had a party for my son and his friends, but not for adults. And then we went to Israel. And that trip, it was truly wonderful. He did not have another bar mitzvah ceremony in Israel, but it was a great way to say, let's think a little more about what being Jewish actually means. You live in one of the few times in history when there's been a Jewish state.
For far too long, rabbis have looked at the parties and said, well, there's more bar than mitzvah, blah, blah, blah.
Rabbi Daniel Brenner.
And I think to myself, socializing with other people in a party situation is something I do in my life. I want my children to do in their lives. I want them to have immersion in it at some point that will help them have those skills. And that's exactly what I think the party does.
I feel like at the service, you should be very mature and act like a grown-up, but then at the party, you're celebrating all the work you put into something. So you can just sort of go all full out and, dance and, go in the chair. Like, yeah,
Are you excited about that
yeah,
part?
It's the best.
Have you been on the chair before where they lift
No, not yet. I'm excited.
So what does all this mean for parents?
You want to say to your community, like, I am publicly, recognizing my child in this moment and their accomplishments and who they are as a person and what I hope for them in their future. And, there's just not that many chances in your family's life where you get to do that.
That's next time on At 13. The At 13 podcast is produced by Michelle Siegel and me. I'm Sara Ivry. Our executive producer is Rabbi Daniel Brenner. Funding to support At 13 comes from the Jewish Community Foundation of Los Angeles, Crown Family Philanthropies, JUF Breakthrough Fund of Chicago, Michael and Carol Lowenstein Foundation, and the many individual donors who support Moving Traditions. The At 13 podcast is powered by Moving Traditions, a nonprofit organization that helps teens grow into healthy, connected Jewish adults. You can learn more about our Bar and Bat Mitzvah initiative at movingtraditions.org.